GM made a big announcement about building right-hand drive C8 Corvettes, but do they still feel the same way? If we can believe the leaks, supposedly out of GM or Holden, they're pricing Australia right out of the market. I'm going to go through this logically and explain what I think is going on. Then I'll give you my three-word answer to that question. Does GM really want to sell right-hand drive C8 Corvettes? Stay tuned. Let's go through the facts. When GM ran the C8 Corvette reveal in July this year, we found most of the rumours about the car were true. The car looked exactly like the renders that were around, but it looked great. The engine configuration and power were as expected, as was the DCT transmission. What was new was firstly the 0 to 60 mph time of less than 3 seconds, which confirmed the C8 as a true supercar. And secondly, it was the price of the car.
What I can share with you tonight is this. When the 2020 Corvette Stingray goes on sale in the US, it will start at less than $60,000.
The price of the C8 at under $60,000, as announced by Mark Royce, sent the world into raptures. A genuine supercar at an incredibly low price. Then for us Australians, there was the announcement of right-hand drive. We should be able to get the car at a little over 100,000 Australian dollars. Was this a car that was better than a Ferrari, a Lamborghini or a McLaren? No, it wasn't, but at that price it eclipsed all those marks for value, and for the faithful, it was a genuine Corvette to boot. But it was the price that made the world stand up and take notice. GM made clear that this was the base or entry-level price, but it was a damn good car in that entry-level configuration. In my estimation, Australia could be GM's biggest Corvette market on a per capita basis outside the US and probably Canada. The only thing that will hold us back is the luxury car tax, the LCT, and the exchange rate. Both of these could improve because the LCT is currently under review and the exchange rate could certainly improve over time. Many Australians are big fans of US cars, and even more widely of V8 engines. How many other countries build four-door sedans with V8 engines? Outside the US and Germany, there's few if any. And how about the V8 supercars that race here? There's been big attendances and TV audiences for years. The Mustang has been a huge success in Australia. Ford didn't have any idea of how well it would sell here. Why? Because the marketing guys, like their Holden counterparts, have no idea of the love of American cars in this country. I remember when I was involved with the Hummer H3 when it was built in right-hand drive and sold in Australia. We couldn't get enough of them. Holden was the big right-hand drive sales area for the world, with far more demand than elsewhere. In the end, GM shipped cars from the UK who couldn't sell them across to Australia who couldn't get enough to meet demand. But here's a problem. For us in Australia, times are really tough for buying American cars. The exchange rate of our dollar against the US dollar is really bad, currently running at less than 68 cents. This immediately makes the price, assuming a simple currency rate calculation, around 87,000 Australian dollars. On top of this, we have a 10% GST, or goods and service tax. However, what really makes it a lot worse for us in Australia is the completely unwarranted Australian luxury car tax, the LCT. This tax, which was brought in to protect the local car industry, is no longer relevant, as now there is no car manufacturing industry in Australia. The tax comes in at a car price of $67,525. And an onerous tax of 33% is levied on every dollar above this price. With all those taxes, the $60,000 US dollar C8 becomes Australian $112,000 when it hits our dealerships. Every extra dollar added to the C8's price above the LCT threshold adds nearly $1.50 to the price when you take the taxes into account, and every Corvette will be above the threshold. Add the Australian to US dollar exchange rate, and every US dollar added to the price of the C8 means over 2 Australian dollars added when it's here. So if any country needs the base model car to get it off to a good start in a new market, it's Australia. Over and above that, what's often done when exchange rates are particularly bad for a country is the exporting country adjusts its selling price so sales are maintained. GM has obviously made such a move for the C8 price in Canada, where the C8 is cheaper than in the US if you do the currency conversion. Similarly, in Australia, the Chevy Equinox sells for less in Australia as the Holden Equinox than it does in the US after currency conversion. There's a discount because sales aren't good. Because of all that, my recent calculation on price assumed GM North America might use the Canada C8 pricing for Australia, which could keep the Australian price under $100,000. The sales volume would be stunning at that price. But the problem for Australia, as yet unconfirmed by Holden, is the supposedly leaked information out of GM that the Corvette will only be sold in Australia with the Z51 pack and the 3LT trim. If we price this out using a simple exchange rate calculation, the price jumps to nearly 150,000 Australian dollars. Now, the leaks of the Australian base spec are unconfirmed at the moment, but there is a ring of truth about them, particularly because of news out of the US. That news is, firstly, base level cars lose money. They go on to say that the car needs to sell for about 80,000 US dollars to hit the sweet spot. So how do you get to that price? Adding Z51 and 3LT will get you very close. And then there's the front end lift and even the engine appearance pack that many would add. GM has already told its dealers the up-spec cars will be built first. Now he is starting to get the picture. Number 2, the 2020 cars are sold out. It's now official that the entire 2020 manufacturing volume has been sold. Because of the strike, 2020 will be a short build year, and even with 2 shifts, it seems Bowling Green can only put out 40,000 cars. So the US demand for cars hasn't been filled yet. The Corvette is America's own car, so it wouldn't be surprising that GM wants to look after its own market first. So one way to slow the demand a little would be to reduce demand for the right-hand drive cars. And this is even more attractive if the right-hand cars can be sold at a profit rather than a loss. GM would keep its word by building right-hand drive cars, but they would be sold in the hundreds rather than the thousand. I'm no expert, but I'd think a C8 Corvette at 99,000 Australian dollars would sell somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 cars, while essentially the same car at $150,000 would sell more like 200 to 300. All the above leads me to believe the rumours are true about the minimum spec of the Australian cars. The leak has even suggested the base C8 may be available in Australia at a future date. All this fits together to show why the minimum spec in Australia will be raised to Z51 pack and 3LT trim package. Some or all of the cars may be fitted with other options, such as the front end lift. Will you be able to get a specific car built? Maybe, but I think it's more likely you'll need to pick from what's been built, at this stage anyway. Will the UK and other right-hand drive countries get a better deal? I don't think they will. I think all right-hand drive countries will be the same. So what's the answer to the question, does GM really want to sell right-hand drive C8 Corvettes? Well, my answer is, not right now. My opinion, if the leak proves to be true, is this is a kick in the face to Australian Corvette fans. If they did the same deal for us as Canada, and the C8 were to be priced under $100,000, the true Corvette fans would be lined up with smiling faces ready to buy. They'd stretch their budgets to buy the first official Corvette sold in Australia. Surely after supplying 40,000 C8s to the US market in 2020, GM could scratch out another 1,500 cars for Australia in the next year to keep a Corvette-loving community happy. This is a big Corvette community in Australia, with nearly 1,000 official Corvette clubs, and I'd suggest there's another couple of thousand out there who love their Corvettes. We'll all need to wait and see what the official word is, but I think it's pretty clear what's happening. I don't know about you, but I'm not about to pay out $150,000 for a C8 when I know they could sell them for under $100,000. I'm going to wait and see how things pan out with time. I should be able to get one eventually. Another interesting point is whether Holden is still around when right-hand drive C8 goes into production. It's no secret Holden is doing it really hard. There's a lot more to be played out in that story. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the video and found it interesting. I'd like to hear your latest thoughts on C8 in Australia. I'll put my costings on my website for the different scenarios for you to look at. The link's down below in the Show More section. So please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and check out my website and subscribe to that too. For now, happy vetting. I hope to talk to you again real soon.